Hello, this is Mr. Stansbury. I'm going to take you through some of the problems on the 12.3 Graphing Quadratic Functions worksheet. Okay, so we're going to do the odds. For each one of these, we're going to identify the vertex. So there's first thing, X-Intercepts, Y-Intercept, axis of symmetry, a whole bunch of things here, huh? Identify whether the function has a maximum or minimum. So that's going to be the fifth thing. Give its value, the maximum or minimum, and then graph the function. So there's 7 things they're asking you to do on each one of these. But a lot of these all kind of work together, so we should be just fine. Okay, so first thing it's asking for is the vertex. So let's just go ahead and do that. So vertex, we're going to use our little x equals negative b over 2a, the axis of symmetry formula, right? So in this case, a is -1, b is -2, c is 3. So in this case, we get x equals -2 all over 2 times -1. So we are ended up getting on the top +2 over -2. So then we get that x equals -1. Okay, so for the vertex, I didn't leave us a lot of room to work here, did I? Vertex, we're going to be at -1 for the x, but also x equals -1 is our axis of symmetry. So number 4 is that. Axis of symmetry is x equals -1. To find the y coordinate of the vertex, we're going to plug -1 back into our equation here. So we do y equals -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 3. So in this case, -1 squared is +1 times a negative is -1. -2 times -1 is +2 plus 3. So y equals 4 in this case. So our vertex is at -1 and +4. Okay, so we have now done the vertex, number 1, and the axis of symmetry, number 4. So we want to find x-intercepts. The y-intercept is really pretty straightforward. The y-intercept is going to be +3. Okay, so there's part 3. So we've done 1, 3, and 4. Let's maybe do the x-intercepts. So when the x-intercepts, that's when y equals 0. So we have 0 equals -x squared minus 2x plus 3. Now, we're used to factoring these things here when they are positive, so we can simply multiply everything in here by saying -1, and then we'll be back to a positive at the beginning there. Okay, so -1 times 0 is 0. -1 times -x squared is x squared. Negative times -2x is +2x. -1 times 3 is -3. So now we can factor this here. Okay, x times x is going to give us our x squared. Factors of 3, only factors of 3 are 1 and 3 that have a difference of 2. And those do, in fact, have a difference of 2, so that's good. In order for these to add up to +2, it's got to be +3, -1. Okay, so we now, since we know that these two multiplied together equal 0, we got to set each one of those equal to 0. So 0 equals x minus 1, and 0 equals x plus 3. Add 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Subtract 3 from both sides, and -3 equals x. So these are our x-intercepts, okay, which is number 2, or part 2, right? So let's see, we should use some of these. The y-intercept is at +3, so we know we've got a point at 3. X-intercepts are at +1, -3. So look, we've got a whole bunch of points going on already, so that's good. Okay, let's see. Now, this graph here it's asking is there a maximum or a minimum? And you can actually always tell by the leading coefficient, the sign in front of the leading coefficient. Since it's negative, that means this graph is going to open down, which means it's going to have a maximum. And then what's the maximum value? Maximum value of this graph is going to be 4, because that's as high as it gets. Okay, give its value. So max value equals is just going to be 4. Okay, so that's part 6, right? And we did the maximum for part 5 there. And then all we have left is to graph. So, graph this thing here. Look, we've already got 1, 2, 3, 4 points. We can just get one more point by going -1 over 1. So we went down 1 over 1. That's our y-intercept. Down 1 over 1 the other way. There's our other y-intercept. And since we got the x-intercepts in there in a nice spot, we can simply just use those. We don't even have to plug those in to find those values because they're already there. Okay? And now we have graphed our function. So we've done all 7 parts. Took us a little bit of time, but it's not too bad. All right, number 3, 2x squared plus 4x plus 4. So we're going to do 3 in red just so that we can tell the difference here. So vertex. Okay, so to come up with that, we're going to do x equals negative, right? Next, x equals negative b over 2a. So negative b in this case is 4 over 2 times a, which is 2. So we get negative 4 over 4. So x is negative 1, which is our axis of symmetry. So let's see, we've taken care of number 4. Okay, and we also know that the x part of the vertex is negative 1. To find the y part, we're going to plug this negative 1 into our equation here to figure out what y equals. 2 times negative 1 squared plus 4 times negative 1 plus 4. So we get negative 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 plus 4. So 2 minus 4 plus 4 gives us 2. So our vertex is at negative 1 and 2. So there's our vertex. Okay, so we've done vertex, axis of symmetry. Now we just keep on trucking. So y-intercept is going to be nice and easy. That's going to be 4. So the y-intercept is positive 4. So we've done that. So we know that this graph is going to cross through here at 4. Okay, and then now we can do x-intercepts, where that's where we set y equal to 0. So we get 0 equals 2x squared plus 4x plus 4. And now we factor. Now, first thing we can hopefully quickly notice here is, look, all these have a common factor of 2. So we get 0 equals 2 times x squared plus 2x plus 2. Now, here's a slight problem here. There are no factors of 2, which are just 1 and 2, that add up to 2, because they're going to add up to 3, right? So here's what we're going to need to do instead. We're going to have to use the quadratic equation here to find our x-intercepts. So factor, let's plug it into the quadratic. You'll remember the quadratic x equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so let's see what happens when we do that. So we've got not 0 equals, x equals negative, let's see, a is 1, b is 2, c is 2. So we get x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 2. All over 2 times a, right? So we get x equals negative 2 plus or minus, and then we got 2 squared minus 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 1 times 2 is minus 8 over 2 times not a, but 2 times 1, right? Which is 2. So now here's a big key here. We got negative, this simplifies to negative 2 plus or minus 4 minus 8 is a square root of negative 4 over 2. Right there, this tells us that we do not have real solutions, which means since there's a negative under the root, that means there's no real x-intercepts. Okay? And actually that could be pretty quickly seen by looking at here's our vertex here, and that it's positive, so we know this thing opens up, so there's no way it's going to cross through the x-axis there, right? So there are no x-intercepts. Let's just graph this thing first, and then we can find those other things really quick. Okay, so we're going to take this 2 over 1, so we go up 2 over 1. There's our y-intercept, up 2 over 1 this way as well. And then since we want 2 more points, we're either going to need to plug in 1 or negative 3. I'm going to choose 1 because I think it'll be nicer to plug into our formula. So we do y equals 2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 plus 4. So we get y equals 1 squared is 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4 plus another 4. Gives us that y is 10. So at 1, we're at 10. And then again, here's our little axis of symmetry that goes vertically right through our vertex. That's 2 units away there. So 2 units away over here gives us our other point. And here's our graph of this equation. Okay? So we've done the graph. And then it says, find if it's a minimum or maximum. In this case here, it's a minimum. And the value of the minimum is y equals 2. So the value of the minimum is 2. Okay? Okay. Okay, one last one to do, number 5. So we're going to do all the same stuff here. So let's do, let's see, vertex. We're going to come up with that there. So the x value of the vertex is going to be negative. If you'll remember, it's negative b over 2a. So in this case, a is negative 2, b is negative 8, c is negative 7. So we get x equals negative, b is negative 8, all over 2 times negative 2. So that gives us positive 8 over 4, negative 4, excuse me, and that ends up giving us negative 2 for our x. Okay, so x equals negative 2 is the axis of, symmetry, right? Or AOS, you can just write that. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to cross stuff off as we do it. Okay, so to find the y value, we plug negative 2 back into the equation. Y equals negative 2 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2 minus 7. Negative 2 times negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16. And then minus 7. So we get negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Plus 16 minus 7 gives us 1. Okay, so there's our vertex is at negative 2, 1. So negative 2, positive 1. There's our vertex. Y-intercept is going to be at negative 7. Y-intercept. So that takes care of that one. And so that's going to cross through right down there. And then let's see the x-intercepts. So first off, let's graph as much as we can to see if it even has any x-intercepts. So our slope is going to be negative 2 over 1, right? So from here we're going to go down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1 this way as well. And if we draw our little axis of symmetry right here, look, this y-intercept happens to help us out because that's just 2 units away here. So we go 2 units more over there. And here's our 5. Here's our 5, important points. Missed the you get the idea. It's supposed to go through there, but okay. So that tells us that it does indeed have some x-intercepts right in here. So let's figure out what those are. Okay, so to find the x-intercepts, we got to set y equal to 0. So we get 0 equals negative 2x squared minus 8x minus 7. Okay, we could try to factor this, but we can already look here and tell that it's not going to be pretty x-intercepts. So let's see, if we were to multiply these together, 2 times 7 is 14. It'd actually be the factors of 14 that add up to 8, because that's a negative out front. It just kind of start getting messy. It's not going to factor anyway, so quadratic is definitely our best bet. A equals negative 2. Oh, wait, we already did that. That's all over here. We don't have to write that again. Okay, so now we can just do the quadratic. X equals negative b, which is negative 8, plus or minus b, which is negative 8 squared, minus 4 times a, which is negative 2, times c, which is negative 7, all over 2 times a, which is negative 2. All right, and then now we just want to simplify. That's going to be 8 plus or minus the square root 8. Let's see, let's get our calculator to help us out. Okay, so we know 8 squared is 60, negative 8 squared is 64, minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 7, right? And that gives us 8. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So, nice part is square root of 8 is just going to be 2 root 2. And you do not need to have known that, but just showing there we go, 2 root 2. So we get x equals 8 plus or minus 2 root 2 over negative 4. So, ignoring the root, these three other numbers all have common factors of 2. And to make our life a little bit easier, we're going to, because we can't have a negative in the denominator, so let's factor all these by a negative 2. So dividing all those by negative 2 will give us negative 4 plus or minus. Doesn't matter if this is positive or negative because you're adding and subtracting it anyway. So we'll leave it as root 2 because the 2 divided by the 2, and then negative 4 divided by negative 2 gives us positive 2. So those are where our two x-intercepts are going to be at. Is at negative 4 plus root 2 and divided by 2, and negative 4 minus root 2 divided by 2. Okay. All right, just to show you that we're like in good shape here, let's do this. Let's do negative 4 plus square root 2, oops, not times, but plus, gives us that, and then we divide that whole thing by 2, and we get that, and then we get our decimal answer, negative 1.29, which is going to be that spot right there. And then if we go negative 4 minus root 2, negative 4 minus the square root of 2, divide by 2, and then we push our little, turn it into a decimal thing, negative 2.7. There's our negative 2.7. So I'm feeling pretty good that those are correct. Okay, so we found the x-intercepts, identify whether the function has a maximum or minimum. It is a maximum because it's up here at the top. Give it its value. Its value is going to be 1. And then graph the function, and we've already done that. Okay? All right, so that's all we have for the 12.3 worksheet. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask.